Most weather stations are completely automated. A few sensors, a radar feed, a computer that sends data every few minutes. Nobody expects someone to sit inside one all night. But the Black Ridge Weather Observatory wasn't most weather stations. It had been built on top of the highest mountain in the county nearly 60 years ago. Every few years, someone from the state would take a temporary contract to monitor the equipment during storm season. 12-hour night shifts, excellent pay, no experience required. The listing sounded too good to ignore. When I arrived, the technician finishing his final week handed me a ring of keys and smiled. "You're going to hear some strange things up here." I laughed. He didn't. The observatory stood completely alone. No nearby houses, no cell service, no radio stations except the weather frequency. Just miles of pine forest disappearing into darkness. Inside wasn't much better. One control room, one tiny bedroom, a kitchen barely large enough for a microwave. The rest of the building was packed with humming electronics, radar equipment, lightning monitors, old analog instruments that looked decades older than the computers beside them. During orientation, my supervisor pointed toward an old radio sitting on a shelf. It looked like military equipment. Heavy steel, large tuning knobs. The paint had almost worn away. "That radio stays on." "I thought everything was digital." "It is." "So why keep the radio?" He hesitated. "Because sometimes the storms talk." I smiled politely. He didn't. "You'll hear weather alerts over that frequency." "Normal enough." He shook his head. "I'm not talking about weather alerts." Before I could ask another question, he handed me a laminated checklist. Most of it was ordinary. Check rainfall totals, monitor wind speed, log lightning strikes. Then, near the bottom, one line had been highlighted in yellow. "Never answer the radio after 2 a.m. I looked up. "What does that mean?" He shrugged. "It means don't answer." "Who's transmitting?" "If you're lucky, you'll never find out." My first 3 nights were almost boring. Rain, wind, routine equipment checks. The radio stayed silent. I started wondering if the previous technician had invented the story to entertain himself. Then, on my 4th night, a thunderstorm rolled over the mountain. Not an ordinary storm. The radar displayed a perfect circle, 30 miles wide, completely stationary. Storms don't stop moving. This one did. Lightning flashed continuously inside the circle, almost rhythmic, like a heartbeat. The lights inside the observatory dimmed. The old radio crackled. Static filled the room. Then, a man's voice calmly said, "Weather Station 7. It knew exactly which station I worked in. "Are you receiving?" I stared at the radio. The voice was perfectly clear, not distorted, not distant, as if someone were standing just outside. I remembered the checklist. Never answer the radio after 2 a.m. The clock read 2:13. The voice came again. "Station 7. A long pause. "I know you're there." I reached toward the microphone, stopped, pulled my hand away. The speaker emitted a soft chuckle. Then the voice said something that made my blood run cold. "Good. You remembered the rule." Silence. 5 seconds passed. Then, "Most of them don't." The radio fell silent. Outside, rain hammered the observatory windows hard enough to shake the glass. I kept staring at the microphone. How had whoever was transmitting known about the rule? More importantly, who were the others? I checked the weather frequency on the computer. Nothing. No active broadcasts, no emergency traffic. According to every instrument in the building, the radio hadn't received anything. Yet I'd heard it as clearly as if someone had been sitting across the desk. At exactly 2:20 a.m., every monitor froze, not crashed. Froze. The radar image stopped updating. Wind speed locked at 42 miles per hour. Temperature remained fixed. Only one screen continued changing. The lightning display. Instead of showing strikes, it began drawing letters, one flash at a time. Dots appeared across the map, then connected themselves into words. "Do not transmit," I blinked. The message vanished. The display returned to normal. I checked the system log. No errors. No record that anything unusual had happened. A loud knock echoed through the building. 3 slow knocks. Not on the front door. From the roof. I grabbed my flashlight. The observatory required manual inspections whenever lightning struck nearby. It was part of the job. I climbed the narrow metal ladder leading to the rooftop platform. The storm surrounded me. Lightning flashed every few seconds. But something wasn't right. The rain had stopped. Below me, the forest was still being drenched. I could see sheets of rain moving through the trees. Yet the observatory itself sat beneath a perfectly dry circle, almost as if the storm refused to touch it. Then I noticed footprints, wet footprints, crossing the roof, bare feet. They began at the edge of the platform and ended at the weather instruments. No return tracks. Whoever had made them never walked away. The old anemometer, the device that measured wind speed, began spinning wildly. The air around me was completely still, not even a breeze. Yet the instrument spun faster and faster until it blurred. Then it stopped instantly. Its arrow pointed due north, a direction no weather instrument should ever lock itself toward. Something moved in the tree line, far below. At first, I thought it was another lightning flash. Then it flashed again. Too low to be lightning, too steady. A flashlight. Someone was standing in the forest, looking up at me. The radio clipped to my belt crackled. Not the old one, my handheld work radio. Dispatch spoke. "Station 7, report your rooftop inspection." Finally, a normal voice. I reached for the transmit button, then froze. The laminated checklist. I remembered another line I'd barely noticed. After 2 a.m., confirm every voice visually before responding. I slowly looked toward the observation windows. Inside the control room, my handheld radio sat charging on the desk. I wasn't carrying it. I looked down at my belt. Nothing. No radio. The voice came again. Closer now. "Station 7. Answer me." The flashlight in the forest disappeared. The trees fell completely dark. Then dozens of lights switched on. Hundreds. Thousands. Stretching through the woods in every direction. Not flashlights. Eyes. All staring up at the weather station. At me. The old radio inside the observatory came to life again. Its speaker echoed loudly enough for me to hear through the rooftop access hatch. The same calm voice said, "They've noticed you're outside." I didn't wait. I practically dove through the rooftop hatch and slammed it shut behind me. The instant the metal door locked, every light in the forest vanished. The building fell silent again. My breathing echoed through the empty observatory. I looked out the window. Nothing. Just trees swaying beneath the storm, as if the thousands of eyes had never existed. The old radio hissed, static. Then the same calm voice returned. "You shouldn't have gone outside." I refused to answer. It laughed softly. "You've lasted longer than most." I unplugged the radio from the wall. The speaker continued talking. I pulled the batteries. Nothing changed. The signal never weakened. The radio wasn't receiving a transmission. It was simply speaking. I carried it into the storage room and locked it inside a metal cabinet. When I returned to the control room, The voice was waiting for me through the computer speakers. I told you. The radio isn't the problem. Every monitor suddenly switched to the same camera feed, the rooftop, a live view from the security camera. The hatch I just climbed through stood in the center of the screen. Then, someone stepped into frame. Me, same jacket, same flashlight, same face. The figure looked directly into the camera, then smiled. I had never smiled. The figure raised one hand. Slowly, it waved, then reached behind its back and pulled open the rooftop hatch. I stared at the live feed. That couldn't happen. I was standing in the control room. The hatch should have been locked. The camera showed the figure climbing down the ladder. Toward me. Every security camera inside the observatory activated at once. Hallway, storage room, generator room, stairwell, one by one. The figure appeared on every screen, always one room closer, always walking calmly, never hurrying. The final monitor showed the hallway outside the control room, empty. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, a shadow passed beneath the door. 3 soft knocks. The control room door. Knock, knock, knock. I backed away. The voice came through the computer speakers. Don't worry. It isn't here for you. Relief washed over me until it finished the sentence. It's here to replace you. The lights dimmed again. Emergency power activated. The radar screen suddenly came alive. The stationary storm had changed. It was moving now, not across the county, toward the observatory. Every update showed the circle shrinking. 20 miles, 15, 10, 5. The storm wasn't drifting. It was walking, like something choosing each step. I checked the speed calculation. It would reach the mountain in exactly 8 minutes. A thick binder slid off a nearby shelf. It landed open on the floor. Station 7 incident log. The pages were handwritten. One entry for every previous observer. I flipped through them. Every account ended almost identically. The storm arrived. A second observer entered the station. Only one person left. None of the reports explained which one. The final page wasn't finished. At the top was today's date, my shift, my name. The rest of the page was blank, except for one sentence that slowly appeared, letter by letter, as though an invisible pen was writing while I watched. Occupancy will return to 1. The knocking came again, this time from inside the control room. I spun around. The room was empty. Then I heard it. A slow breath, directly behind me. I spun around. No one was there. The control room was empty. The breathing stopped. Then every monitor in the room shut off simultaneously. The only light came from the rotating beacon atop the radar tower outside. Every few seconds, its white beam swept through the windows. Light, darkness, light, darkness. Each pass revealed something new. The first flash, nothing. The second, a pair of muddy footprints on the floor. The third, the footprints had moved closer. No one was making them. They simply appeared, one step at a time, as though someone invisible was walking toward me. The storm reached the mountain. Every window exploded with rain. Not normal rain. The drops struck the glass so hard, they sounded like handfuls of gravel. The weather instruments went wild. Wind speed, error. Barometric pressure, error. Temperature, error. Only one display continued working. The occupancy monitor, a small system that counted everyone inside the building for emergency evacuations. Normally it displayed occupants, 1. The number changed. Occupants, 2. I froze. The room was empty. I slowly searched every corner. Storage closet, bathroom, hallway. No one. The display changed again. Occupants, 2 confirmed. The old radio crackled. I told you. The calm voice sounded almost sympathetic. It made it inside. What are you? Silence. Then, I'm the one who stayed. My stomach tightened. What does that mean? You'll understand before sunrise. Lightning struck the radar tower. The entire observatory shook. Every breaker tripped. Darkness swallowed the building. Emergency generators should have started immediately. They didn't. The only sound was the rain. Then, footsteps. Slow, measured, walking through the hallway, not toward me, around me, circling the control room. One complete lap, then another, never stopping, always just outside the door. The occupancy monitor updated. Occupants. 3. No, I whispered. The footsteps never paused. Another set joined them. One pair heavy, the other bare feet. Just like the footprints on the roof. 2 different people, walking in opposite directions around the room. One clockwise, one counterclockwise. They never met. The radio whispered, "They're deciding." Deciding what? Which one belongs? The emergency power finally activated. The hallway security camera came online. At first, it showed exactly what I expected, an empty corridor. Then the image skipped. For a single frame, someone stood outside the door, a weather observer, gray state-issue jacket, flashlight hanging from his belt, his face hidden beneath the hood. The next frame, he was gone. Another skip. Now he stood halfway down the hallway, facing the camera. Another skip. Closer. Every skipped frame. He advanced several feet, never walking, only appearing nearer each time, until the final frame. He stood directly outside the control room window, looking in. The occupancy monitor changed again. Occupants, 4. I backed toward the emergency exit. The steel crash bar wouldn't move. Locked. Impossible. Fire exits couldn't lock. Not from the inside. A laminated evacuation map had fallen from the wall. Someone had written across it in red marker. When the count reaches 5, the rest had been torn away. The radio suddenly screamed with static. Not loud. Agonized. As if hundreds of voices were trying to speak at once. Then they all stopped. One voice remained. Very quiet. Very close. It wasn't coming from the radio anymore. It came from directly behind me. You should never stay until the 5th. I didn't wait to find out what the 5th meant. I grabbed the emergency flashlight and slammed my shoulder into the exit door. It didn't move. The crash bar bent. The door stayed shut. Outside the narrow window, there was no longer a mountain, no rain, no trees, only thick gray fog. The observatory no longer seemed connected to the outside world. The occupancy monitor blinked. Occupants, 4. The number remained steady for almost 30 seconds. Then, another line appeared beneath it. Awaiting final arrival. Every light in the building flickered once. The footsteps stopped. Complete silence. Even the storm vanished. No thunder. No wind. Nothing. It was the quietest silence I'd ever heard. Then, someone knocked on the front door. Not 3 knocks, just one. Soft. Almost polite. The old radio spoke immediately. "Don't answer it." For the first time, the voice sounded frightened. Another knock. The front entrance was nearly 50 feet away at the end of a long hallway. I could see it from the control room. No window, no peephole, just a heavy steel door. A voice drifted through it. "Weather service. We're here to relieve the overnight observer." I almost laughed. There was no way anyone could drive up the mountain in this storm, especially at 3 in the morning. The radio whispered, "It learned the uniform." Another voice joined in. "State police." "Sir, we need you to open the door." Then another. "My supervisor." "Everything's all right." Then another. "My mother." "Michael, please." Every person I'd ever trusted. Every voice perfect. Every inflection identical. One after another, begging me to unlock the door. The old radio hissed violently. They've never done this before. The occupancy monitor changed again. Occupants. 5. Every alarm in the observatory activated. Not the fire alarms. A tone I'd never heard before. Deep. Mechanical. The incident binder lying on the floor suddenly flipped open to its last page. New words appeared. Transfer in progress. Below that, another sentence slowly wrote itself. Current observer, becoming previous observer. My heart stopped. I finally understood. There weren't 5 people in the building. There had never been 5. There were only different versions of the observer. The security cameras switched on by themselves. Every monitor displayed the same hallway, except each camera showed it differently. One looked brand new, fresh paint, modern equipment. Another looked decades older, yellow walls, old furniture. Another showed broken windows and rust. Another showed the hallway underwater. Fish drifted lazily through floating paperwork. The same cold, saltwater smell filled the room again. For a split second, I thought I saw something enormous moving beyond the submerged hallway, too large to fit inside the building. Then the image changed. Gone. One camera finally settled on a single figure. He stood at the end of the hallway, gray weather jacket, flashlight, exactly like mine. Except he was older, much older, gray hair, deep wrinkles. He looked exhausted. He slowly raised his flashlight. Blink, blink, blink. 3 flashes. Morse code. I recognized it immediately. Run before I could react. Another observer stepped into the frame behind him. Younger, different face, different decade. Then another, and another. Soon the hallway was filled with weather observers from every era. Some wearing uniforms from the 1960s. Others from the 1980s. Others that looked decades into the future. None of them looked at each other. Every one of them was staring directly at me. Then, they all pointed toward the control room door. The handle began turning, slowly, from the outside. The handle turned halfway, then stopped. Silence. Every version of the observer outside the door remained perfectly still, watching, waiting. The oldest one, the man with gray hair, looked directly into the security camera. Slowly, he shook his head. No. Then he pointed upward, not at the ceiling, at the radar tower above it. The observatory's emergency blueprint hung on the wall. I'd looked at it dozens of times. Now something was different. A maintenance tunnel had appeared, one I'd never noticed before. It connected the control room to the base of the radar tower, marked only with faded lettering. Authorized personnel only. The old radio crackled. That's your only chance. You said not to trust you. I know. So why should I now? A long pause. Because I'm trying to become the last one. The control room door shuddered, not from someone forcing it, from someone unlocking it. One lock clicked, then another. The hallway cameras all went black, one by one, until only a single camera remained online, the rooftop camera. The radar dish was turning, not tracking the storm, tracking the building itself. Its massive antenna slowly rotated until it pointed directly at the control room. I found the maintenance hatch beneath an old filing cabinet. It wasn't on any official floor plan. The metal door was covered in dust, as though nobody had opened it for decades. The ladder descended into darkness. I climbed down. The hatch sealed itself above me. The tunnel was narrow, bare concrete walls, power cables stretched overhead, every few feet. Someone had written dates on the wall in black marker. Beneath every year, one sentence. Observer transferred, halfway through the tunnel. I found photographs taped to the wall. Every overnight observer, standing in front of the weather station on their first day, smiling, excited. I recognized several faces from the security monitors, the older versions, the tired versions, the ones who had tried warning me. Then I reached the final photograph. It hadn't yellowed with age. It was new, printed only hours earlier. It showed me, standing outside the observatory, smiling at the camera. The problem was, I'd never posed for it. In the corner of the picture, someone stood behind me, mostly hidden by the fog, wearing my jacket. The tunnel ended beneath the radar tower. A circular room surrounded the tower support column. The machinery looked ancient, far older than the observatory itself. Bronze gears, copper wiring, mechanical relays. None of it should have still worked, yet every gear turned perfectly. At the center stood a large brass wheel, like the helm of an old ship. Engraved around its edge were dozens of names, every observer, including mine. Only my name hadn't been completed. The final letters slowly carved themselves into the brass while I watched. A notebook rested beside the wheel. The handwriting matched the oldest entries from the incident log. The first page read, "The radar was never built to detect storms." I turned the page. It detects arrivals. Another page. "The storm is only the doorway." Another. "Every observer believes they are replacing someone." My hands began shaking. The final page contained only one sentence. "No one has ever wondered who they are replacing." The room suddenly grew cold. Not from the weather, from behind me. A voice I'd never heard before spoke softly. "You finally asked." I turned. Standing at the entrance to the chamber was myself, not older, not younger, exactly as I looked right now. Same clothes, same flashlight, same expression. He smiled. "I've been waiting for you to make it this far." He slowly reached into his pocket and removed a weather station ID badge. Mine. Except beneath my name, it read, "Observer since 1968. I couldn't speak. The man standing in front of me wasn't just someone who looked like me. He was me. Same scar on my left hand. Same worn boots. Even the tiny crack across the face of my wristwatch. He tossed the identification badge onto the floor. It slid to my feet. I picked it up. Issue date, April 14th, 1968. Employee status, active. That was impossible. I wasn't even born until decades later. He smiled. I remember thinking the same thing. "Who are you?" "You." "No. You before." He glanced up at the spinning machinery. "And after." The brass gears clicked loudly. For the first time all night, the radar dish stopped turning. Complete silence filled the chamber. Then every gear began spinning in reverse. The version of me looked toward the ceiling. "The storm has arrived." "What storm?" He laughed. "You still think that's weather?" The concrete walls vibrated. Dust drifted from the ceiling. The entire mountain groaned beneath us. He pointed toward the brass wheel. "It doesn't predict storms. It chooses observers." I looked at the hundreds of engraved names surrounding the wheel. Everyone had been scratched through except the last. Mine. "I don't understand." "You will." He stepped beside the wheel. "Every generation. Someone has to stay." "For what?" "So it doesn't come down." He said it so casually, as though explaining how to change a light bulb. "What doesn't?" He looked directly into my eyes. The thing that mistakes radio towers for lighthouses. Above us, the radar tower screamed, metal twisted, bolts snapped. The enormous dish outside began rotating faster than any machine should. The control panels lit up one after another, not with weather data, coordinates, hundreds of them, across oceans, across continents, across places where no weather stations existed. Every location blinked green, except one. Station 7, blinking red. My double walked to the center of the room. I've stood here for 58 years. No, you've stood here for 5 hours. He smiled sadly. Time works differently once you're assigned. I suddenly remembered every previous observer. The old man on the security camera, the younger one, the frightened one. They hadn't aged normally. They'd all become the same observer, watching, waiting, warning. The notebook beside the brass wheel flipped open by itself, the final blank page filled with writing. Observer transfer authorized beneath it. 2 names appeared. Current, Michael Harper. Incoming, Michael Harper. No replacement, no new employee, just me, again, and again, and again. The building lurched violently. One of the concrete walls split open. Beyond it, there wasn't rock, there wasn't earth, there wasn't even the mountain, only darkness, endless darkness, floating within it. Thousands of enormous lights, not stars, eyes, each one larger than the observatory itself. Slowly opening, all focused on the radar tower, searching. The same deep voice I'd heard on the radio all night echoed through the chamber. Not threatening, not angry, simply curious. Is the beacon still occupied? My double looked at me. If nobody answers. It keeps looking. He placed one hand on the brass wheel. Immediately, his body began fading, like fog burning away in sunlight. I've been waiting for someone to relieve me. I don't want this. Neither did I. The wheel started turning on its own. My name slowly moved toward the top. His moved lower, until it disappeared completely. He smiled one last time. I'll give you one piece of advice. What? Never answer the radio. He dissolved before finishing the sentence. The chamber became silent. The brass wheel stopped. Every monitor in the observatory above flickered back to life. The storm vanished from the radar. The occupancy monitor displayed a single line. Occupants. 1. Outside. The sunrise broke over the mountains. The forest looked perfectly normal. No fog, no impossible storm, no eyes. State officials arrived just after 8 o'clock. They congratulated me on completing my first shift. I asked about the overnight observer who had trained me. They exchanged confused looks. One supervisor checked his records. There hasn't been another overnight observer here in 58 years. I still work at Black Ridge Weather Observatory. The pay is excellent. The storms are usually quiet. Most nights, the radio never says a word, but every once in a while, at exactly 2:13 a.m., it crackles to life. A nervous young voice asks, "Weather Station 7. Is anyone receiving?" I always reach for the microphone. Then I remember the first rule I was ever given. I let the silence answer instead. Because somewhere beyond the storm, something is still searching for a lighthouse. And as long as it hears my voice, it knows exactly where to look.